today I decided to go to the Museum of the History of Medicine in Sapienza University in Rome. This is where it was. And I went in through the front and they told me it was over 3 floors, and it really was. And what I liked about it was it started early, as I'm going to go on to say in the little thing I made up. So it talked about the Egyptians, it talked about how cultures throughout the years have used priests and shaman in order to treat people. And then it looked at Galen. And Galen was somebody who came up with the 4 humours, and we had to keep them all in balance: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. I particularly liked this. It was obviously a school group that did it, and I thought it was good fun. It talks about Galen again and what he learnt about, how he believed that the liver was a central bodily organ for nutrition and growth. And then we also talk about Arab medicine. And bear in mind that 1,000 years ago, there were women operating on eyes in the Arab world. The idea that we then went there and decided to do the Crusades, or that perhaps we're doing that again today, seems rather absurd. But anyway, I like the fact that they brought Christianity into it. Remember, in Rome, we were always around the sort of old and the ancient, and also the meeting of paganism with Christianity. And this was particularly lovely that you have Cosmo and Damiano, who are our patron saints of physicians, surgeons, and pharmacists and dentists, which is kind of strange because in Britain it's St. Thomas, I think. But anyway, they then incorporate new worlds and new knowledge. We look at anatomy. The anatomists of Italy, well, we know Fallopian came up with fallopian tubes. We know that Leonardo da Vinci created beautiful looks at muscles. We also know that they dried out the blood system, the blood vessels, and the nerves in order, as they would do Parma ham, in order that we could look and see how these things worked. Those things we actually have in England in the Physicians Museum. Then they looked at the body in movement, which I particularly liked. There was a look at somebody had actually created in the 16th century an idea of a kind of how our orthopedic selves work. So how you could put this around. It's like a big caliper. Very uncomfortable, but also slightly robotic. I rather like that. And then they looked at women's gynecology a little bit on this is not a homemade thermometer, which it doesn't quite work. And then this is sort of back at the beginning again. Anyway, I am Horus, who passes through the wandering demons of Sekhmet. This is a look at the idea of medical training and within the Egyptian world. I'm going to go on to sort of look in my next video at what I actually could see in there and what I really liked in there. I do not take pictures of anything that is anatomical or somebody that's dead, simply because it's rude, I think, and maybe a bit immoral. Okay, I'm currently in the last bit of the Museum of the History of Medicine in Rome in Sapienza. And here it becomes quite interesting because we start looking at chromosomes. There's a fascinating little bit on Mendel and how we look at alleles and the idea of metabolic defects because of recessive genes. But what I like most is, because I don't think I've seen these in many places, here you have 2 globular proteins, and together they make, if you look at them, they make up our red blood cells. Now, there's not, I'm assuming this is, it almost looks like a secondary protein, as does this one, but I still think this is rather lovely. They start talking about psychiatric medicine, and at one stage you've got a look at the giants of 20th century psychotherapy, so Freud, Jung, and Adler. And all of this started at the beginning in Egypt, and we went and looked at some
people who were, how do we put it, the people that made things work. So the priests, and before that we look at shaman. And then finally we're sort of into the area of sort of 20th century Nobel Prizes. So we've got Pauling, I think, who won 2 Nobel Prizes, one for physiology, and he talks about sickle cell anemia. So I like the fact that this sort of follows on from our red blood cells, and then we look at how the sickle shape doesn't work, and that's because of Mendel's ideas about alleles. So I would say that there's no one here, and that's a little bit lonely, but it's really rather good if you're looking first year university level or A-level biology. It's quite good fun and it's quite interesting. But there's not a lot in English. There's some, but not a lot. And finally, we sort of look at DNA and we think about, and this is the thing that I think is missing in a lot of the museums that I go to in Britain, we think about how the new uses of technologies can make things better and what we can do, including diagnostics, including using robots, and we are already using robots. We can control side effects within cancer treatments because we can use biomarkers, and we can create humanized organs because we can use chopping of DNA in order to put it into cells and then maybe regrow somebody's kidney. I am still quite fascinated by how enormous these kidneys downstairs were. Totally bizarre.
And to sum up, the place, well, it's not that exciting, but it's very easy to get to. It's about a 15-minute walk from Termini, and it's relatively quiet. It could do with a bit of love, but I also suspect it was kind of boring for me to be on my own, because I was literally on my own over 3 floors. Optimum time, 30 minutes to an hour maybe. If there'd been another person there to discuss it with, I might have taken a bit of more time over it. Demographic, it's not for younger kids. It's for 16 upwards, I would say, or maybe 14 upwards. It does look at things that I think are good biologically and interesting from biology A-level and GCSE perspective. So think about 14 upwards. Maths focus, there isn't a maths focus, it's STEM focus. Attractions and shop. Now, I think these are meant to basically be about the fact that it would be quite nice to have a piece of cake and a cup of tea. There is no shop, there is nowhere to eat, but you are close to the university, you're close to the major hospitals, and you can get back into town within about 10 minutes, and then you can go and eat pizza to your heart's content.